Hello there, my name is Anton Talks, and today I'm going to delve into a scenario of what if the Brown team won World War II in Anna's Pro's WICSO series. Don't forget to subscribe, and now please enjoy the video. World War II, a conflict that occurred due to the Square Alliance's expansionism. But how do we make a Brown team victory? Well, first, let's go to the Russian invasion of Poland. For this, we gotta beef up Poland. A way to do this is to make the Union more united in their shared historic and economic status due to the Great Depression. They also need a strong leader who can get them out of the hard economic times and make it so the country can invest in their military and thus be able to handle the invasion better. However, despite this, Russia is just a giant, and little Poland can't handle that. And also, we still need World War II to ignite. So we need the encirclement of the POWs to happen. The POWs, like in our timeline, would go into the Farmers Union, who would give them to the old empire. Like in our timeline, the Triangle Alliance gets mad, and yeah, I think you know how the rest goes. After this, though, there's one massive change. Yeah. Well, now, you might be saying, but Anton, how is this possible? The Brown team's king, Alexander IV, was a pacifist. Well, that's a good question, Barry. You see, despite Alexander IV's unfavorable views on joining the war, he still did join the war later. And also, a lot of people in the Brown team wanted to join the war, including some military generals. So I bet they can convince Alex to join the war. Now, it's time to go back to the front line of Greece and the old empire, which would be unfavorable for the Greeks. Like I said with the Poles, the old empire is a giant, and with no land border with any allies, and the inevitability that the Farmers Union will join to the war, it really seems very unfavorable for the Greeks. But however, the Farmers Union ain't in the war just yet. So, let's go to the Polish front, where Brown team troops prepared for an entrance into Poland marched to protect the country. This would cause the front line to move in favor of the Triangle Alliance. In fact, the army might even go into Russian territory, which is something I consider a very likely possibility. However, after this, the front line would stalemate. Going to the Norwegian front line, it is likely to stay like it was in our timeline, with part of the Brown team's army and the Norwegian army having an equal amount of strength. Now, let's go to the African front, which in our history was terrible for the Triangle team, who were unprepared for the old empire's invasion. We have to make the Triangle team more prepared for the invasion. Specifically, France, who doesn't border any enemies in Europe. So in this timeline, when they realized war with the old empire would be inevitable, they would gather most of their army on the border. And when the old empire invades Egypt, they would lose, and France would be able to invade parts of Arabia. However, the old empire would be able to reinforce that front line, making sure that France doesn't go into their territory anymore. So as you can see, most of the front lines are in stalemate, and so far it's looking good for the Triangle Alliance, except for one front line, the Greek line, and it's about to get even worse for Greece. The Farmers Union would join the Square Squad, and immediately the Greeks would get pummeled by the two. Their capital would fall, and the nation would surrender. Now it's time to go to the Purple team, which was exiled to the Balkans, the worst place to be exiled. However, despite that, they would remain pacifist and not join the war, because in this timeline, their leader cares about their people. Another important country to talk about is the North African Union, rest in peace, which joined the Square Squad in our timeline. However, in this timeline, the old empire's invasion of Egypt is unsuccessful, and that invasion caused the Great Colonial Thought, which led to the colonized to think if they really wanted to be colonized, and led World War II to become more of a colonial war, which the North African team opposed, and led into their entry into the war to end colonialism. Without the notion as World War II as a colonial war, the North African Union would not join the war. The last nation who is part of the Square Squad that would not join is the light blue Spanish team, which had pretty good relations with the Triangle team and only joined the war for revenge. All they really need is a leader who is a pacifist and doesn't want to join the war. Back to the Brown team. Their generals now have an ingenious way to win the war. The Triangle Alliance would quickly invade Norway, finish Norway, pull all the troops that destroy Norway against Russia. Russia surrenders, just leaving the old empire to kill. To help this, the Triangle Alliance got two more allies, Persyndia and the Green Team, who were looking to grab some land for the old empire. The old empire was caught off guard by this, and the two were able to get good ground. To make matters worse for the Square Squad, a huge invasion of Norway took place. In fact, even Norway's capital would be captured, causing Norway to surrender. The Square Alliance knew they were done for, so they made a last-ditch effort. Russia would charge its soldiers into the front line, and while they did gain ground, it wasn't exchanged at literally everything else. The rest of the alliance, seeing the success, would do the same thing, with the same results. This success wouldn't last as long, as the retaliation for the Triangle Alliance would be very successful with no quotations. It's over for the Square Squad. Within 1 year, the Square Squad all surrenders. World War II, a conflict of devastation, was over in Brown Team victory. Now, it's time for the peace deal, the Treaty of Zilk, the capital of the Brown Team. First, let's go to the Farmers' Union. Part of the North will be given to the Brown Team, the Yugoslav country, and Poland. In the South, some land will go to Greece. The rest of the Union would be split again. Norway has the most simple treaty. The South would go to the Brown Team, and the rest of Norway would be turned into a Brown Team puppet. Now, on to the big two. Russia. Here, we got a lot of historic nations making a return. Poland will gain some land out west, and a new Siberian nation out east would be created. The Gold Team is back, with most of its territory coming out of the old empire, which, speaking of the old empire, time for it to get partitioned too. First things first, the Georgian Red Team is back! That's cool, right? No one cares? Okay. Persyndia and the Green Team would get their fair share, and everything else would be a result of imperialism. Greece takes Crete and western Turkey. The French country takes Cyprus and some of the coast of Arabia. The Italian Union gets the area around Israel/Palestine, which is a wormhole I will not get into, Lebanon, and Syria. The Catalonian Purple Team gets part of Arabia. The Brown Team gets Southern Arabia, and the Blue Spanish Team gets everything else. So, this is the end of part 1. Make sure you are subscribed so that you can see part 2. Have a good day, everyone.